Namaste. Hello, Hoopers. My name is Katie, and I am the founder of Celestial Yoga and Flow Arts. It is a movement arts brand that is inspiring people to get up, move, find the flow that exists within them so that they can translate that flow into their daily life. And we get to have fun by doing some hooping in the process. Besides hooping, Celestial Flow Arts also encompasses some different movement arts. We won't get into that a whole lot today, but if you're curious, I'm going to link the website somewhere in the video description so you can check it out and see what else I'm talking about. For the sake of this workshop, we're going to stick with just hoops, and I'm preferably working with a beginner size hoop. So I'm going to show you the difference on what I'm talking about because there's a lot of different hoops out there. So if you didn't get your hoop from me and you already have a hoop laying around in your house, let's go over what exactly you have. So I have a beginner hoop right here. This one is a little bit smaller than what I would recommend for you. As you can see, it comes up to about somewhere right around the pelvis, which is not bad. It's not too small, but it will be a little bit more challenging to go around your waist and around the body with a smaller diameter, because there's less room to work with inside the hoop. So if this is what you have right now, and if it's a heavy material, like a weighted hoop that's a little bit smaller, you may be able to still do this workshop. But what I want to avoid is having any child-size hoops. So I'm going to get one of those out. That could be this size, or what you'll commonly see at Walmart or the dollar store with the rattling inside. Very lightweight. Also could be a little bit smaller. As you see, they're all the same size, but it's more or less weight that I'm talking about in this situation. So if you have a child size hoop, go ahead and try the video, but you may actually have more success when you get a hoop that's fitted to your size and has the right weight to it. So I'm going to put these down, and I'm going to show you what I would want you to have today so that you could have the best experience possible. So a beginner hoop should come right up to the belly button, or at least around it. It should be like 1 or 2 fingers above or below. And honestly, it's a personal preference. It could also have to do with how tall you are and how big your muscles are and all of that as well. So, just kind of experiment and see. Like I said, if I didn't make you the hoop, you're just going to have to experiment a bit here. If you did get a hoop from me, no worries. You actually have the exact hoop for this workshop. So with this beginner hoop, we're going to learn a few different tricks today. We're going to learn how to hoop on body around the waist. We're going to learn how to build stability and strength while we hula hoop around the waist. And we're also going to learn a few transitions. We're going to learn lasso, which is right up here above the head. We're going to learn how to switch hands. And then bring the lasso back down to the waist. And this is where it all starts, my friends. Like, this is the beans and gravy, or whatever the expression is. The meat and potatoes, that's what it is. I'm a vegetarian, so of course I said beans and gravy, but the meat and potatoes of hooping, it actually starts with waist hooping. So if you've started hooping with a lighter hoop and you're doing off-body stuff, that's great. But I highly, highly recommend learning how to find that flow with the hoop connected to your body, on the waist, because once you find that, this flow will translate through the rest of the trick. So don't skip this foundational step, and I'm excited to share with you exactly how to get there. So we're going to start today with your hoop around the waist, and I'll turn so you can see that I have the hoop resting on my low back, and I have my feet about hip width distance apart. You can have them a little bit wider. It's honestly a personal preference. And I'm just going to start swinging side to side. I'm doing these little spinal movements side to side. And I'm letting the hoop graze over those little hip points. So if you know like where the smallest point of your waist is, let it graze right there. Back and forth. You may even start to let it come in front of you, starting to massage the sides of the belly maybe, and just see how that feels. Because this is really the awareness that you're trying to bring when you're waist hooping. You really want to keep it in the same plane. And this is actually going to be keeping all of the muscles in your core engaged. Even the legs and the glutes will have to be slightly engaged to keep it level. So yeah, we're just going to start just like this, side to side. And actually, this is a very good stretch to do before hooping. And if you're feeling a little tight today, go ahead and pivot on the back foot. So whenever you're turning to one direction, pivot on the back foot. That way you're not twerking the knee or feeling any tension in the outer leg. Okay? So let's do this a couple more times, following the breath, breathing deeply here. Maybe close the eyes, really feel the hoop on the body. All right, starting to come back to center. Let's lift the hoop up overhead. And let the shoulders be open here. This could feel like a nice shoulder or chest stretch. And really, we're just using the heel of the palm to press up on, I would say about 10 and 2. So if you're looking at the hoop like a clock, it's at 10 and 2. Press up with the heel of the palm. All right, so you should feel this stretch already in the chest. Now, if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can widen the grip here. Maybe walk the hands down the hoop to get it a little bit wider on the wider points. And really let the hoop draw back. This is very, very similar to a move that we do in yoga classes with a strap, where we're working on that shoulder mobility, those joints that need to add a little extra synovial fluid. We're just moving them around a little bit. So it may feel nice to lean side to side. And if you're doing this inhale as you lift up, maybe the gaze lifts too, and then exhale to bend over. And pause on one side. Maybe let that side get a little deeper of a stretch before moving up and over. We're going to do this for a few deep breaths, so take your time. And really allow the body to open, to feel receptive to these teachings today. Let's do one more on each side. Maybe the gaze lifts up to encourage a little more openness across the chest. One more over to the other side. Awesome. All right, let's come back up to stand, and you can flip the hoop in front, so we're just rotating it down, and now we have it in front of us. All right, so let's walk the hoop a little bit in front of our feet. So I would say this is about 2 feet in front of my feet, in front of my toes. And I'm going to take another step back so that when I inhale to lift up and exhale to bend forward, that my hips are right over the heels. And what I don't want to see is gripping through the toes. So let the feet all be working here in every corner of the foot, pressing down into the earth. And if you need to walk the hoop a little bit further out, you can. Also, feel free to bend the knees here. So we're just opening up behind the legs. Believe it or not, this will help with waist hooping. Any tightness in the body can definitely restrict flow. So stretching is super important here. All right, inhale, come back up. Let's walk our feet closer to the hoop. Let the hoop rest right on the front side of the body. maybe have it a little bit at an angle here for our next move that we're gonna do. This next stretch is really important for what we're gonna be doing later with bringing the hoop up to our chest. All right, so let's start with feet about hip width distance apart. And we're gonna place both hands on the lower back, fingertips pointing down, and squeeze the elbows into each other. So active shoulders, active elbows, and mindfully move the shoulders down as you press the elbows in. So with all of this action in the arms, take a deep breath in, and then exhale, press the palms into the low back, into that little triangular spot on the tailbone, and press the hips forward. You may even engage the glutes slightly here. Keep squeezing the elbows in together, shoulders are pressing down, open up through the hips, lift the heart up towards the sky. So feel this little micro lift happening here. Yeah, almost like a string is attached to the heart and someone's pulling it up to the sky. Yes. All right, and then exhale, coming back. Yeah, that may have been an intense stretch for some of you, and that's okay. You know, we're all starting in a different place, and some of us may have to work a little bit more on opening up across the chest, across the side body in order to unlock these tricks a little bit more, right? So since we've already done a little bit of stretching, feel free to pause the video if you feel like you need a little bit more, and let's go ahead and jump into the first trick. So hooping on the waist. So once again, let's step with the feet about hip width distance apart. The hoop is gonna rest on the low back. All right, hands out to the side at 9 and 3, let's say, or maybe even at 8 and 4. All right, whatever's comfortable for you, depends on the size of your hoop really. And then let's do those rotations side to side a couple times. And when you feel ready and you have some momentum, usually what I see is a lot of people tend to be right side dominant. So that means using the right hand to push the hoop to the left. If you are predominantly left-handed, it may feel better or more in control to start the hoop in the other direction. So wherever you're at, we're gonna do both sides anyways. So go ahead and start with your dominant side, and we're gonna move side to side a couple times and eventually launch the hoop over. So this is what it should look like. The hoop is going around in circles around the body, around the waist, and it may not look like I'm doing much here in the midsection, but I'm actually doing these little spirals. I'm moving my hips around in these tiny little movements that are very similar to barrel rolls. Cat-cow barrel rolls would be something you may be familiar with if you're a yogi, and maybe even if you've done some belly dancing or something like that in the past, you know what I'm talking about with that little tiny churning of the hips. So it's not a big movement, right? That's what people forget. They think it's this big movement here, but it's a very small movement, very controlled. And it's involving the core to be very, very engaged. So each time that I move my hips around in a circle, I'm sinking down and I'm moving them around a little bit here, all right? And something that I use to help me figure out if the hoop is in the same plane and I'm not looking at a mirror is, do I feel the hoop pressing on the top of both hip bones? Because if what's happening is it's wonky, so I'm gonna try to get it all wonky, and it's going in this strange direction, now it's not hitting both hip points, it's hitting one hip point and kind of the side of my hip over here. So this doesn't feel like it's in plane at all. So my suggestion would be, if it's kind of going off on a plane, to get it back into balance, just draw the hips forward, engage the core, and find a point of contact with the hoop around each rotation. So we're not just moving side to side and hoping it comes to the other side, right? We're actively pressing in all directions with the hips so that I'm actually in contact with the hoop the entire time. So I hope that was helpful for waist hooping. If you're still having struggles, let's troubleshoot. So some troubleshoots that I get is that the hoop only goes around 1 or 2 times and then it slowly falls down to the ground. And there could be 1 or 2 things that is causing that. One thing could be that your hoop is actually too small. Remember, we talked about the hoop needing to be at about the belly button to really get this trick faster. I recommend having that bigger hoop. Or if you're using a bigger hoop, but that's made out of a very lightweight material, what that's going to do is require you to have a little bit more effort and energy and momentum in the hips to keep that rotation going. So like with science, right, heavier objects tend to move slower. So that's why the heavier hoop is going to be a lot easier to learn, because you have more time and space to move inside the hoop and get those actions of connecting all the way around, making those little micro movements in the hips, right? So if you're not getting it right away, please don't give up. You may have the wrong kind of hoop, and if you have the right size and weight of hoop, then honestly that just means you have to work on engaging the core a little bit more and finding stabilization through both feet. So once you have those 2 points rooting down into the ground with your feet and you're engaging the core, then you really will start to see a difference in how long you can keep the hoop up on your waist. All right? So maybe you want to pause the video and work on that a little bit more before moving forward. But if you want to just keep going and let this all wash over you, then let's go ahead and move on. So now that we've learned a little bit about waist hooping, let's move to the next step of lasso. And lasso is a fun trick. It reminds me of like being at a rodeo, which I've never been to, but I've seen it on TV. So for all of you that have seen rodeos, that's awesome. You know what I'm talking about. But if you remember, in a rodeo, there's ropes that they swing over their heads, and it's in like this circular motion, and it's really cool. So that's essentially what we're doing with the hoop. And the hoop's already a circle, so we don't have to swing it in a way to make the circle with the rope. So how do we get it over our head, right? Well, it starts with waist hooping, which we just talked about. And then the next step to learning lasso would be to slowly and mindfully slide the right hand, and this is if the hoop is going to the left. If you're using your left dominant hand and the hoop is spinning to the right, you're going to want to use your left hand. So just keep that in mind. All right? So let's go ahead and slide the right hand down. And you should feel the hoop grazing over the palm. The back of the hand is glued into the lower back. So it's become one with your body. There's no longer any space between the hand and the low back. So the hula hoop does not know a difference between the hand being there and it just being a part of your body, right? So this is where we start with it. We just need to get comfortable letting the hoop graze over our hand and really be aware that it's going in between the index finger and the thumb. This is going to be important because whenever you feel comfortable with this part of the trick, we're actually going to grab the hoop and lift it up. And that's going to look a little something like this. All right. So once we feel comfortable here, the next step would be that we grab the hoop. But before we get there, I want you to set the hoop down and start to feel this motion of having the hand glued into the lower back. And then with control, on an inhale, lift the elbow up, peel that shoulder up towards the face, like you're gluing the shoulder to the face, and lift the arm up. So if you see that action, we're really keeping it up into a straight line. We're not going outwards. We're not turning it around in front of our face. All we're doing is lifting the elbow. The elbow's leading the way, and then the rest of the arm follows. It's magic. It's amazing. Now, this is a very strange motion. This is not something that we normally do in our daily lives. So I invite you to really practice this part of the trick without the hoop first. And you may need to do this a few times, a few different times of practicing. Some people, it takes a few weeks to learn this trick, and that's okay. There's really no correct timeline of learning tricks, by the way. I just want to emphasize that before we get too far into this video. These are all things that could take time to learn, but that's the fun of this activity, is actually getting to practice it. So I don't want you to get too caught up with needing to master everything that you learn in this video today, but instead write some things down. If you want to make some notes that you can practice with this later on, please do that. And then just keep working on these tricks, okay? Because I promise you, they seem so hard at first, but once you start to get the different parts of a trick and piece them together, it clicks. And you're like, oh, wow, yes, I'm getting exactly what she says now. And then that's when the state of flow is starting to develop. So let's go ahead and try to piece those two moves together if you're ready. We're going to start, once again, my dominant side is my right, so I spun it to the left. All right. And then slowly glide the right hand down on the low back. Keep the hoop between the thumb and the index finger. And when you're ready, when you feel the hoop graze across the hand, that's kind of the trigger word of saying, now, 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 now. So you can start saying that in your head before you actually grab it, so you get the timing. So you may do that a few times. And once you feel comfortable, you grab onto the hoop and let the elbow lead the way. All right? And I'm going to slow that down so you can see it a little bit more. All right, so some things to remember here. We want to pull the elbow all the way up to the sky. So really focus on that elbow moving up, keeping the hoop in one plane, that horizontal plane, parallel to the ground. Yes, awesome. Now that you understand a little bit more about getting the lasso up, we're gonna keep the hoop spinning around up here, right? Once we can get it up here. And if you haven't mastered this part of the trick yet, no worries. I'll show you how to get the hoop up here so you can learn coming back down. So if you don't have lasso, let's go ahead and circle the hoop in front of us and then move it right on up overhead. So there's a little bit of a grip change here. So circling in front, and then as you lift, we're grabbing a hold when the hoop is away from us, and then we're swinging it back around the back of the hand, and then we're just flipping the grip. All right? That's one way of getting up there. Another way would just be to swing the hoop here, and then let it spin around the thumb, and then let it come in between the index finger and the thumb up here. All right, so all you're gonna do is swing the hoop right overhead. Watch out not to hit yourself in the face on the way up, but if you do, no worries. I've done that before. Or you can just swing it right on up. So really you're using momentum here and keeping the hoop between the thumb and the index finger. So that's pretty much where you want the hoop to be at whenever it's off body, is rolling in between the thumb and the index finger. That's like your main point of contact, okay? So from here, whenever you can get up here, to switch hands, all you do is come to prayer hands. So both hands pressing together. Try to keep the hoop in the same plane, so start to level it out, see if it's getting wonky, and find that muscle control in the arms and the shoulders to stabilize the hoop above the head. All right? Now, whenever you feel comfortable, lower the right hand down. So now it should be just on the left hand. Okay? And from here, whenever the hoop is going around us, we'll grab onto the hoop. So you see the hoop is a little bit more out to my side now, my left side. And we're gonna lower the hoop down to our waist. And that was really hard to do slow, so I'm gonna do that a little bit faster. So we're in lasso. We switch the hands by doing prayer hands. Stabilize the hoop. Make sure it's in the same plane. And then let the right hand come down. Grab on with the left hand. And then lower it down to your waist. And you know what? It may look like this right now, where you need that extra hand. And that's okay. Don't feel like you can't help yourself out. This is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to invite movement and flow and creativity. So if at any time I'm doing a trick and you unlock a completely different trick in the process, you add in something, you add your own spin on it, then like, yes, you're doing it right. This is exactly what hooping is supposed to be. All right. So with that being said, lasso is one of those tricks that can be very challenging to piece together all the way. So give yourself time to learn this one, but it's fun to work towards, you know, and this trick will definitely be a very good transition for later on down the road when you're hooping and you're flowing and you're dancing around and you want to transition from on body to off body. All right, and that leads me into my next trick, which is isolation. So as you can see right now, this is called an isolation. I have the hoop staying in exactly the same plane, exactly the same point of space in front of me. I'm not letting it go up or down or side to side. It's just staying in one direction and in one plane. All right, so this is very similar actually to if you're driving a car. The steering wheel doesn't actually move up or down or side to side. It stays in the same plane and it just spins in one direction or the other. So with that visual, this trick is very easy to learn if you have a mirror. Mirrors are helpful because you can see exactly what you're doing in real time and correct it. Now, if you don't have a mirror that you can use for this, I recommend filming yourself. Short videos, you know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, and only you have to watch it. And film yourself doing these isolations once I show you how to do them, because that's gonna help you smooth them out over time. A lot of this is muscle memory, and a lot of it is building strength in muscles that our bodies forgot even existed. So be patient and be compassionate. And let yourself have fun recording yourself and progressing through these tricks. That's been very helpful for me, and I totally recommend doing that. So isolations are really fun and can be done with beginner hoops. Now, moving forward in your hooping journey, you may find that extended periods of time doing isolations can be very exhausting with a beginner hoop. Why do I say that? Because beginner hoops are a little bit heavier than the lighter style of hoops. And I didn't go over that too much earlier because I don't want to get off the subject of beginner hoops too much, but there is another type of hoop called polypro hoop. I make those as well, and they're predominantly used for off-body tricks. They're very lightweight. It's more sustainable to do for long periods of times, off-body tricks. But the downside to polypro would be that it's a very lightweight material, so trying to keep it on your waist would be very challenging. It can be done, but definitely not in the very beginning. So we're gonna stick with beginner hoops for right now. If you have a polypro hoop already from me and you want to do this trick with a polypro, by all means. But it is nice to experiment with the weight of this beginner hoop because it's challenging our muscles and it's challenging our control of stabilizing the hoop. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our hand facing up. I'm starting with my right hand, and the hand is on the hoop at about 12 o'clock. And I have it right in front of my face. The arm is actually slightly tilted up, so there's a little bit of an incline here because I want to be able to see through the hoop. I like seeing through my hoop. I've seen some people do isolations here, and that's fine. I just like mine a little bit more extended and higher, so you can experiment with that yourself. All right, once you have the hoop here, grip the hoop, and then start to turn the hoop over to 9 o'clock. Once you get to 9 o'clock, draw the hoop down to 6 o'clock. and then eventually over to 3. Once you get right here, this is where a lot of people are like, okay, now what? My arm is fully extended. How am I supposed to keep moving it? This is exactly what happens when you're in the car using your steering wheel. And so what you do when you get to 3 o'clock is you release the hoop, let it roll over the top of the hand, and the grip will actually come back at around 10 or 11 o'clock. Okay, it never really gets back to 9 after that. And you actually skip 12 each time. You only start at 12 and you go from 12 to 9 to 6 to 3 and then over to like 10, 11-ish area. And that's really the cycle of doing an isolation. It's actually pretty simple. Now, the hard part is stabilizing the hoop so that it's not going in all directions and trying to keep it from, like this is what it usually looks like in the beginning. So my suggestion would be to start with 2 hands. So if you start with 2 hands, you can have 2 hands up here at 12 o'clock, release 1 hand to go down to 6, and then you switch hands. So you remove the right hand, and then you bring the left hand over to 3 o'clock, up to 12, and then switch hands, and then switch hands. And you can actually find that center plane, like exactly where you want to keep the hoop when you use 2 hands, and you are building muscle stabilization here too. So maybe just try this for a few times. See how this feels. See if you can keep it in the same plane. If not, stick with this for a little bit. And once you build that outer muscle activation, you'll feel it in the forearms, maybe in the outer arm into the shoulder. Then you can start moving to just 1 hand. Now, something I want you to avoid, and I touched on this briefly earlier, but I want to stress the importance of it now before we get too far into this video, is doing a trick on both sides. So what that could mean is if it's on body, going in one direction or the other, always do that. Don't just pick your favorite side. If you pick your favorite side and you only practice the trick on that side, it would be the equivalent to only practicing a pose on one half of your body. So let's say you only did dancer pose on one side, you only did extended side angle on one side, warrior series on one side, you name it. Any 2-sided yoga pose, if only done on one side, is gonna create these muscle and body imbalances, and we don't want to do that. So after this video, I really encourage you to practice more, but on both sides. So if you haven't gotten a chance to do that on your waist yet, you can do that with me now. And just see how it feels, all right? And let's go through that a little bit too with lasso. So if you did lasso with predominantly your right hand, then let's move the hoop in the right direction and use our left hand and see how that feels. And let the hoop graze across the palm. The back of the hand is glued to the lower back. And then maybe you drop the hoop down and start to lift up through that left elbow and do those same arm extensions with the other arm. Okay, so do this a few times, really breathing into it. You can close the eyes. It feels really nice to understand what's happening in the muscles and in the body when you're doing these tricks. So feel what's happening. The shoulder's rolling forward and up. It's squeezing up towards the face. The elbow point is really pressing up towards the sky. Yeah, it feels really good for me. I don't know what it feels like for you guys, but this is a really nice stretch for my side body. So now that you've done that a few times, let's bring the hoop back to our waist, spin it to the left, spin it to the right. We're gonna use our left hand and place it on the small of our back. All right, back of the hand glued to the lower back. Hoop is grazing in between the thumb and the index finger. All right, once you feel confident that you have the timing right, you can say, now, 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 now. Like you can say that as many times as you need to before you feel confident. Then lift the hoop up overhead into your lasso. All right, from here, we can put both hands together in prayer hands. See how that feels. This may feel super awkward going in this direction up here. And then maybe lower the left hand down. After staying here for a few breaths, maybe you try to lower the hoop down to the waist. And as you see, I just dropped my hoop. I've been hooping for 9 years, guys, so just to give you some feedback on that, you're always gonna drop the hoop no matter what. No matter how long you've been practicing, no matter how long you've been devoting your time to this art, there are gonna be times, this is a prop, so anytime you're working with props, there's a chance they could fall. And that's just part of the process. And as you can see, I don't get upset about that. I'm just having fun. So from here, we just did lasso, brought it down. So let's try isolations on the left hand if you used the right hand predominantly in the first round. All right, so you can start with one hand and see how that feels. And if you notice, like I said, that the hoop's going all around, just let's go ahead and start right away with 2 hands at 12 o'clock. Move the left hand over to 3, down to 6. Switch the grip. Move right hand over to 9 and up to 12. Switch the grip. And then moving forward with that same flow. So see how this feels. And if you haven't gotten a chance to record yourself or look in the mirror yet, seriously guys, this is gold right here, because this is going to tell you exactly what it looks like. And it's so much better to stop a bad habit from forming before it begins than trying to break habits that have been learned with practicing these tricks incorrectly. So just move a few times on your own. Good. All right, you guys are doing so great. I'm so excited that you've made it this far into the video. Congratulations on your persistence and your effort. This is not an easy art to learn. Once you learn it though, it is so rewarding, and I can't stress enough how much this has helped me in my own personal life feel balanced, grounded, and centered. So with that being said, I would love to get to the next trick. This is going to be the highlight of the video. This is what we've been working up to, and I'm so excited to share this one with you because it's one of my favorite tricks, and it's called barrel roll. So a barrel roll is very similar to an isolation, but instead of keeping our body facing the hoop, we actually turn our bodies 360 degrees while keeping the hoop in the same plane. So I'm going to do that one more time so you can see how I'm keeping the hoop in this isolated plane, but I'm moving my body around in a circle. All right, and you can do that really slow. And you may notice that the hoop is going kind of in like crazy directions and it's not really forming that isolation circle. So here's some tips for that. Whenever you start to turn, you want to really actively use the shoulders to keep the hoop stable. And I like to look up at the hoop as I'm turning around. I let the bottom of my hoop gently graze my lower back, maybe even on the back of the hips. And then I slowly make my way back around. And by keeping the hoop close to my body, I feel like I have more control over it. I know exactly where it is in space, and I know exactly where I need to put my muscle activation. All right, so let's try that again on the other side. So moving already back in the other direction, slowly step the feet mindfully to move in a circle, and then do this a few times. You may need to take breaks if you naturally get dizzy very fast. If spinning in circles makes you nauseous or dizzy, I'm not sure if this is the right activity for you. That may be a contraindication. But even still, learning this art, there's a little bit of a period of learning how to develop that ability to spin in circles without feeling nauseous or dizzy. So maybe stick with it a little bit. If you notice that it's, making you feel a little off balance, challenge that a little bit at first. But obviously, if at any time you feel very lightheaded or dizzy or something just doesn't feel right in your body, please set the hoop down, take some breaths, maybe take a seat yourself, and then reestablish connection after that. Okay, so let's go ahead and piece all of this together. I would love to show you how to make this a combo, so I'm going to go ahead and put it together myself, and then I'll walk you through it slowly. All right, so we're going to start with the hoop going to the left. I'm going to lasso up, change hands. Right hand lowers down, left hand brings the hoop down to the waist. All right, perfect. And then lasso back up. You can turn with this as well. That's really fun to do. And then we're just going to draw the hoop in front of us. Hinge the hoop so that the grip is facing up. And then move into the isolations. So you can start with two-handed here. Maybe moving the other direction first. This always looks really cool when you switch it up. And then moving to one hand. Once you have a few rotations with the one hand, this is when you can add that special trick of the barrel roll. So both hands come, and then you circle around. All right. All right, so slowing this down, remembering to keep the hoop in an even plane so that when we lift the elbow up, extending it overhead, it stays in that same plane. So we don't want it moving in all sorts of directions. That'll probably hit us in the face. All right, and then just bring it back down to the waist. Keep it back on the hip points. So once again, evening out the plane in which the hoop is traveling. You can pull it back up overhead if you're already confident with this trick. And from here, we'll leave it up overhead, really even it out, make it look very effortless. And then we can swing it in front. And from here, we'll simply hinge the hoop, much like opening a door, the hinge of a door. And now the palm is facing up so that when we grip the hoop, we can move right into isolation. So starting with two hands, finding the steadiness here, and keeping the hoop in the same general plane in front of us now. So this is different than that horizontal plane. This is more of a vertical plane. And then you can switch directions, still using two hands. Find that smoothness. And eventually you may release a hand and move into a one-handed isolation. And after doing that a few times, you can finish off this combo with a very fun barrel roll using both hands. And then moving your body 360 degrees while keeping the hoop in the isolation. That was so much fun. I'm really excited to see you guys in person and see all your progress that you've made with this hooping video. Until then, if you have any questions, you can email me. My email is yoga@celestialflowarts.com. And I'll give you some troubleshooting advice and we'll work it out. Because I promise you, like whatever block that you're having with any of these tricks, you can overcome. You can overcome. And it's so worth it to get to the other side because it's not about mastering the trick necessarily. It's about mastering the state of flow. And I truly believe that developing a daily routine of adding hooping to your life, it really, really helps establish the state of flow. So With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. It was truly a pleasure to help you on this hooping journey, and my heart to yours. Namaste.